A couple had been married for many years without ever having a child. Because of this, the husband often stayed out all night, and the wife would always sneak out late into the night as well. Strangely, not long after, the wife became pregnant. This filled the husband with suspicion. That night, he secretly followed his wife into a bamboo grove, but the scene he saw there sent chills down his spine. His wife was tenderly embracing a tall, white bamboo stalk, as if the bamboo itself were her lover. Terrified, the husband ran straight back home, but just as he stepped inside, he saw his wife holding a bamboo shoot in her arms, claiming that this was the child she had given birth to. From that day on, the husband never returned, and no one dared enter that eerie bamboo grove again. Years later, a group of children, curious about the rumors, ventured into the grove to explore. There, they met a girl named Tsukiko, who was in fact the bamboo shoot the woman once held in her arms. They noticed that Tsukiko was a little different. She only drank water, never ate anything else, and she never left the bamboo grove, not even once. Even so, the children liked her a lot, until one day, they got lost in the bamboo grove. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't find their way out of the familiar forest. In the end, only one boy named Kasuk remained trapped in the grove, while the other children returned home safely. The next day, the children came back to the bamboo grove. To their surprise, they discovered that whenever Kasuk was with them, they couldn't leave the grove either. With no other choice, Kasuk decided to stay and live with Tsukiko. As time passed and Kasuk stayed longer in the bamboo grove, the villagers came to visit them less and less. Through their time together, Kasuk and Tsukiko fell in love, and eventually became husband and wife. Not long after, Tsukiko became pregnant, but on the day she gave birth, she too gave birth to a bamboo shoot. That was when Kasuk first realized just how different Tsukiko really was. From then on, the villagers considered the bamboo grove to be cursed, even though his wife and daughter were both born from bamboo shoots. To Kasuk, they were still the family he loved most. The three of them lived happily together in the bamboo grove, but sometimes, Kasuk would think of his little sister, and he dreamed of taking his wife and daughter to see the world beyond the grove. Then one day, Ginko passed through the area. He was a Mushishi. In this world, there are mysterious supernatural beings called Mushi. When humans come into contact with Mushi, strange things happen. Sometimes they cause all kinds of problems. Mushishi are those who exist to solve those problems. After hearing Kasuk's story, Ginko suspected that all of this was caused by Mushi. The bamboo grove was connected underground by an intricate root system. One particular bamboo stalk had a Mushi parasitizing its roots, absorbing nutrients and growing rapidly. That Mushi could control the entire grove through the root network. Tsukiko and her daughter were the Mushi's children. They were under its control, which is why they couldn't leave the grove. Following his map, Ginko found the white bamboo inhabited by the Mushi. At that moment, Tsukiko was collecting water from the white bamboo. That water was their lifeline, the source of life for both mother and daughter. Ginko asked if he could have some, but Tsukiko refused, because her mother had once warned her never to give that water to outsiders. So far, only Kasuk had ever drunk a little of it as a child. Tsukiko's words made Ginko even more suspicious about the water. When she left, he secretly took a bit of it, then walked toward the grove's edge with the flask in hand. Sure enough, he found himself trapped inside the grove too. It turned out the white bamboo used the water to control people's minds. Because Kasuk had drunk it, he could never leave the grove again. The only way to break the curse was to destroy the white bamboo, but Ginko wasn't sure whether doing so would harm Tsukiko and her daughter. Hiding nearby, Tsukiko overheard their conversation. Only then did she realize that it was her giving the water to Kasuk that had taken away his freedom. Kasuk longed to leave the grove, but he couldn't bear the thought of losing his wife and daughter. If the price of freedom was losing them, he'd rather stay in the bamboo grove forever. That night, Tsukiko took an axe to the white bamboo, but no matter how hard she swung, she couldn't harm it. Then Ginko told her it was because Tsukiko herself was part of the white bamboo's offspring. She could never hurt it. Ginko urged her to cherish her life with Kasuk and their daughter, but Tsukiko couldn't forgive herself. She swung the axe again toward the white bamboo. This time, she managed to cut it clean through, but in the next instant, the white bamboo vanished and escaped. Meanwhile, Kasuk stepped out to search for his wife, and to his amazement, he found he had walked out of the bamboo grove. Overjoyed, he ran back to the village, but everyone now saw him as a monster. Even his sister refused to open the door, telling him to leave the village at once. The harsh truth broke Kasuk's heart. He gave up all hope and returned to the bamboo grove. From then on, the little family continued their quiet, happy life. 6 months later, Ginko came back to the bamboo grove, but now, it was completely lifeless, and in Kasuk's home, only he remained. After the white bamboo was destroyed, his wife and daughter lost their only source of nourishment. Without the white bamboo's water, they soon passed away. Kasuk was filled with sorrow and guilt. He knew his wife had done it all to give him his freedom. Now Kasuk was truly free, but he no longer wanted to leave the bamboo grove. Years later, as he was wandering through the forest, he found a new white bamboo sprouting deep in the grove. At the same time, from his wife and daughter's graves, came the sound of a baby crying. A woman accidentally cut her finger, but what came out wasn't red blood, it was a thick, milky white fluid. Sayota used to be an ordinary woman, living in poverty with her husband due to their barren land. The couple could bear hunger themselves, but their newborn child could not. Sayota was too malnourished to produce milk, and the baby cried endlessly from hunger, fearing the baby would starve to death. The couple fell into despair. That's when a sweet, fragrant scent drifted in from the forest. They followed it and discovered a small spring of milky white water. The spring not only gave off an alluring sweetness, but it tasted rich and smooth, just like breast milk. So Sayota fed the child some of the water. To their astonishment, a miracle happened the very next day. Sayota began to produce an endless supply of breast milk. They thought the spring water must have some kind of healing property, curing Sayota's malnourishment by accident. But when they returned to the forest, the spring had vanished without a trace. Since then, Sayota's baby grew stronger and healthier by the day, but her own health steadily declined. Sayota didn't pay her condition any mind. She only wanted her child to grow up safe and well. One day, while working in the fields, she got injured, and to her surprise, white liquid started oozing from the wound. Her husband was finally alarmed by her strange condition, and brought many doctors to examine her, but none could diagnose the illness. Sayota herself seemed to sense her days were numbered. She made her husband promise never to tell their child she was sick. She only wanted him to grow up happy and healthy. After saying those words, Sayota passed away. Shiro, her husband, kept her final wish. He never told their son, Yutaka, what had happened. Years passed. Yutaka grew up and started a family of his own. He had seemingly endless energy, working day and night without ever tiring. Even in the dead of winter, his fields were lush and full of life. Through hard work, he gave his family a prosperous life, and credited everything to his strong, healthy body. Then one day, Ginko happened to pass through the area. He was puzzled to see crops thriving in the freezing cold. He found Yutaka and asked about it, but Yutaka himself had no answers. He only knew he had always been full of energy, and would feel ill if he ever tried to sleep, often waking up to find himself unknowingly working in the fields. That's when Ginko noticed something odd. He caught a subtle, sweet scent coming from Yutaka's body. Later, he met with Yutaka's father, Shiro. After hearing Shiro's story, Ginko was certain Yutaka had been parasitized by a special kind of mushi. This type of mushi targets women who have just given birth. To gather enough nourishment, it transforms the woman's bodily fluids into milk, so the child it plans to infest will grow up strong and healthy. Once the child matures, they begin to emit an aura that stimulates plant growth, and the mushi compels them to work constantly, so it can draw more nourishment. The mushi remains until the host's life force is completely drained, then moves on to the next target. This meant Yutaka was unknowingly working himself to death. Shiro couldn't bear to tell his son that he had survived by consuming his mother's life. Ginko handed Shiro a medicine that could expel the mushi, leaving it up to him whether or not to give it to Yutaka. Shiro was torn. He tried to confess the truth to Yutaka many times, but never found the courage to do it. Then one day, Yutaka suddenly collapsed in the fields. If not for his wife finding him in time, he might have frozen to death. After that, Shiro finally made up his mind. That night, he told his son everything, but Yutaka accepted the truth calmly. Even though he knew the mushi would eventually kill him, he refused to give up its power, because now, he too had someone he wanted to protect. Just like his mother once gave her life for him, he was ready to do the same, to give everything he had, to ensure his family lived a happy life. Ren was the only human born with webbed hands. He could stay underwater for hours without surfacing, yet the villagers saw him as a monster. Ren was born with a body cold as ice. He had no body heat at all. The midwife thought he was stillborn, but Ren miraculously survived. As he grew older, his affinity with water became extraordinary. He could dive deep and long, bringing back large fish every day to support the mother who raised him alone. One day, Ginko passed through the area, holding his ever-present insect-repelling smoke, but when Ren caught its scent, he suddenly felt very uncomfortable. At first, Ginko thought it was the smoke's sharp odor, but the moment he touched Ren's skin, Ginko knew something was wrong. Ren's mother soon arrived. Ginko questioned her. Was Ren unusually skilled in swimming? Did he move awkwardly on land, drink often yet remain thirsty, and speak slowly? Ginko's description of these symptoms aligned perfectly with Ren's condition, so the woman invited him into her home. There, Ginko observed Ren's cold body, slow speech, and the webbing between his fingers and toes. It confirmed his suspicion. Ren had been parasitized by a type of mushi. This mushi fell to earth with the rain and flowed downstream toward the sea. Once it had bred, it would rise again into the sky with the mist, an endless cycle. But sometimes, a part of them would stray from the group. It would latch onto a fish, or a drowning human. Those infected would show the same symptoms as Ren. Only during a flood would the mushi abandon its host and return to the sea, but no one could predict when such a flood would come. Ginko handed the woman a vial of medicine, a temporary remedy to suppress the mushi's effects, and ease Ren's symptoms for the time being. The next day, the medicine worked. The webbing between Ren's fingers began to recede. His body warmed. His speech became clearer, more natural. Encouraged, Ren finally gathered the courage to approach the village children. He shared the fish he'd caught, offered shy greetings, and slowly, their fear gave way to curiosity, then friendship. The woman watched all this with quiet relief. A month passed. Ginko, still worried, returned to check on Ren. The woman bowed deeply in gratitude. She told him Ren was doing well. His body was warmer. He no longer craved water constantly. She asked if she could have more of the medicine, but Ginko knew the medicine had reached its limit. Without removing the mushi, the symptoms would inevitably return. Still, he promised to keep searching, to find a way to free Ren once and for all. As Ginko was leaving, he warned Ren again, never drown again, but Ren only looked at him, puzzled. I've never drowned. A month passed. Then, out of nowhere, a storm unlike any the village had ever seen hit. The river swelled violently. It was as if some force was calling to Ren. Ignoring his mother's desperate cries, he walked straight toward the riverbank. By the time the woman reached the shore, Ren was nowhere to be seen. Luckily, Ginko arrived just in time, stopping Ren as he tried to leap into the river. Ginko believed that this flood might be the key to saving Ren, so he quickly led the mother and son to the top of a large tree. He tied Ren securely to it with rope. Then they waited, waiting for the mushi to leave Ren's body on its own. But as the water level continued to rise, Ren's struggles grew more desperate. It was the mushi trying to return to the sea. The mother held her son tightly, refusing to let go, holding him until the first light of day. As the floodwaters began to recede, Ren finally awoke. He was back to normal. Ginko, ready to take him home. But then something strange happened. Ren's body suddenly began to heat up, and before anyone could react, his body evaporated, disappearing like steam into the air. It wasn't until deep into the night that Ginko figured it out. His thoughts were confirmed when the woman began to recall her own past. It turned out that many years ago, it was she who had drowned. The river's current had been so strong that day. She and her husband had fallen into the water. When she woke up on the shore, her husband was gone, having drowned. Later, she discovered she was pregnant, but when the child was born, he was icy cold and unresponsive. The villagers had thought him a monster. Even so, she had been grateful that her child had survived. When Ginko heard her story, he finally understood. Ren had been parasitized by the mushi while still in the womb. He had grown alongside the mushi, becoming fully integrated with it. That was why Ren and the mushi evaporated together, ascending as one. The woman had survived the drowning, not because of her own strength, but because the mushi had inhabited her unborn child, sustaining her with its power. Ren's life, one that should never have been, had been a gift. With the mushi's help, he had lived to be by her side, using his very life to repay her for the life she gave him. As the rain began to fall again, the woman felt a quiet warmth in her heart. She could feel it. Ren was still with her,